So, in the basic textbook for the tennis distal method, I have shown lots of exercises that have to do with how I train the primary model for motor skills training in tennis. We will see many of these exercises, but here let's see some basics together. So, since we are at the tennis court, let's see some very basic exercises. So let's take stance and train some balance. They are very close, stance and balance. So if I'm doing the secondary model for motor skills, I could, for example, train balance being not necessarily inside the tennis court by doing this, okay, standing in one leg, or closing my eyes, or using any form of equipment really, okay, and try of course to balance. If I take a tennis racket and do the exact same things, for example trying to do the form as well, now I'm doing the primary model, which is done inside the court, and it's at a different level than the secondary one. If I do balance, the primary model for motor skills, balance, and I stretch my arm as much as I can, then I have combined balance and flexibility. So let's see the physical conditioning model. I just do internal rotation like this. This of course is strength, okay? Or if I do it for a long period of time, it's strength plus endurance. If I just take a racket and try to hit the ball with a certain speed, okay, then I'm doing the primary physical conditioning model for tennis. And the difference of course always is that the primary model uses tennis to develop the physical conditioning or the motor skills components. I can stand on a balanced platform, okay, and do the same thing. And now I have combined, as you can see in the pyramid, strength, balance and speed. Of course, and this is very important because the methodology, the way someone is constructing the method is very crucial. Someone will say, yeah, but that was ballistics as well, so was that the motor skills model or the physical conditioning model? Okay, so look, the exercises are not important. What is important is how I categorize them, it's the system. So, of course, everything has elements of everything else, okay? And I have to be able to find what is more fundamental and what is more advanced. But in the system, the way I have categorized things, it produces some results. So I stay with the general idea of the system and I categorize the movements based on the system I use that time. So yes, maybe it's true that there's a ballistic component, but it's completely impractical and it's completely impossible to find a perfect way to exclude all other parameters and focus only on these ones. I can do this only ideally in paper, so when I do the models I have to think in abstract. Okay, I have to think that I have them separately. The model is an idealization. You cannot, it's impossible in the science everywhere to have the model directly transferred to reality. The model is a guide for our thought, so we may be able to have a compass, okay, and be able to navigate through the world. But the model is not the world, and this is a basic problem. this is a basic problem of not only tennis coaches but of scientists as well, because you have to start. You know, there are scientists at the level of PhD, there are researchers who really don't know epistemology, and they can't understand the relationship between abstract thought, models, and reality. And the usual mistake is that they do magic, witchcraft, which is going from reality to models. No, we do the models and we then try to apply them, making conventions to the reality. They are guiding principles, they are not the reality. So the way we categorize an entity, in mathematics this is called inclusion in sets, is very crucial about how we will deal with this entity. For example, we can have the same exercise and treat it as a motor skills relevant exercise and apply to it all the criteria and the guidelines we have for motor skills, or treat it as a physical conditioning exercise. Okay, and there are all possible types of cases from where an exercise is clearly a motor skills one, as is the exercises for the rhythm and what the application does, the tennis pulse application does, or there are exercises that are obviously, for example, strength training, okay? But there are exercises in between, but the criterion is set by me, not by the exercise, and the criterion for technique and for the form and for the system is set by me, by the scientist, by the coach, not by the player. I'm not going to see the player and try to copy him, okay? Or I'm not going to copy a professional player and try to transfer this to a novice player or something like that. No, I will do as a scientist my part, and if the professional player wants, he can do, he's free to do that. He can go to a clairvoyant or to a shaman and he may do some magic. That's fine, completely fine, and I'm not trying to reduce it, okay? Or he could go to a scientist and follow that kind of program. Okay, I'm doing science here. So what I do is prior to what a player does, not the other way around. And an interesting example about categories and the borders is the example of the dolphin. So, okay, a kangaroo is definitely a mammal, but a dolphin, for many people, is somewhere between a fish and a mammal. Of course, we know it's a mammal, but with other criteria, it's a fish. Okay, and there are civilizations that treat it either as a mammal or a fish, and you can see that in many religions where, for example, fish are excluded, but mammals are included in fish. Anyway, the bottom line is that we set the criteria, not the world. The world is there. Between us and the world, there is a fault of the senses, there is restrictions in our way to perceive it, which cannot be overcome by technology. That's a myth, the naive recorder myth. And what I do is I have abstract thought. That's what happened in classical Greece. This is their biggest contribution to humanity. I have abstract thinking. I think of the categories first, and then I go to the world and I say, okay, based on the categories I have thought, I will categorize the phenomena which appear before my eyes. Okay, now, I just want to share with you a very special exercise that's very important for the athlete, which is the ladder. In the ladder, I combine many things, and it's a really complete way to train at many levels, and see and view it as a way to train both motor skills and physical conditioning skills, and to some point create hybrid exercises combining motor skills and physical conditioning. So Of course, the athlete can do some forms of exercises that look like the secondary synthetic model, so he will do it without the racket, and he will do some footwork, for example. He may use equipment. Κάνε ξέρω εγώ τη κίνηση. Or we can move to the primary models, okay, and do things inside a tennis court that are related to tennis. Where the ball lands may or may not be relevant to our focus. Okay, in the last exercise that we used the ball and we got into the primary models, where the ball goes may or may not be relevant to our focus. So we could just use it to train our motor skills or our physical conditioning, and it could be relevant where the ball goes. Or we could combine it, okay, the directionality, we could make it relevant and combine the models with some more tennis-specific skills. But tennis as playing, the activity of tennis as having it broke down is examined next in synthesis and structure.